With the sign of Aries, it is the beginning of a long process, that of the construction of identity. It is the first of the individual signs. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, the beginning of all things. Symbolically, it's the mornings of our lives. When the sun crosses through Aries, it is the beginning of the astrological solar year. The ram also symbolizes the departure of all our incessant journeys through life. He tells us about the path of the heroine or the hero of our lives. Aries is a sign of fire and it's cardinal. Here the seed of possibility is planted. Aries is the sign of individuality, of identity, and self-discovery is the main subject that this sign asks us to learn throughout life. We will constantly unlearn to relearn, because Aries offers us spontaneity and it symbolizes the first spirit. To accept, to begin, and to begin again. Accept to look at life like a huge field of infinite possibilities. That is what reassures here. Aries represents the seed and the birth, the breath of life. The potential here is enormous because Aries carries within the promise of the 12 signs to come. The archetype of Aries represents, among other things, competition, the instant gratification, the agitation, the challenge, the impulsiveness, the impatience, to be able to do what we want, but also the departure of a new way, the initiative, the birth, the survival, the rage, the energy, the number one, decisions, testosterone, fire, iron. Every sign has things to teach us, and the signs that face each other form an axis of complementarity and contrast. Here, it's the Libra archetype. Libra encourages Aries to discover itself, because when we go forward in life, when we initiate a path, we will inevitably meet others, represented by Libra. This sign symbolizes the union, the search for harmony and beauty. That's why when we try to understand ourselves, we learn a lot more about ourselves if we really look at our reactions, our reflections, our projections, and those of others in regards to ourselves, because the other is our own mirror. What we think we feel about the other person is in fact only what we feel inside, because we will never be able to be in another person's shoes. We will never know the other one truly. And since the archetypal energy of Aries can sometimes get carried away by the adventure it initiates, the need for insight is important to avoid getting carried away by anger, impulsiveness, provocation, selfishness, opposing for the pleasure of opposing. Mars governs Aries. The actions here can quickly become reactions. Aries is in search for its own identity without even knowing it. There is an impulse towards the past and another towards the future, And this dance can sometimes be an inner conflict and spring in an external impulse. Where you have Aries in your personal chart is where, among other things, taking action and getting into the adventure seems to be more natural or easier. In the axis Aries-Libra, it is about the emphasis on relationships, the respect for others as individuals, because it is about learning that one individuality will have to create with another individuality without having to devalue it to feel in turn valued. It is also the competition and the comparison opposed to the collaboration and the sharing, but also all games of war and peace, the minorities and majorities, the archetypes of the feminine and the masculine. It is therefore our ethical capacity to individuate and to live together. The Aries-Libra axis is, among many other things, the pact between the audacity to be oneself and the curiosity of the plurality that lives in us and that surrounds us. The shadow path of the Aries archetype here would be to take refuge in the hatred of the other, and by the same, and often, without knowing it, the hatred of oneself. The shadow path of the Libra archetype here would be to stay on the surface of things, never to be confronted with that which disturbs, or to exist only in codependency, or to use ideas as instruments of war. In an energy of light, here are just some of the themes that the Aries and Libra archetypes teach us, and that the Aries and Libra planets will help us develop. To initiate, to trust ourselves, spontaneity and nonchalance, to allow ourselves to be penetrated by the energy of the other, of duality and neutrality. To develop the idea that emotional vulnerability does not mean weakness.